Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that follows the money behind the beautiful game. I'm Kevin Day, and I'm joined by Professor Kieran Maguire of Liverpool University, who is the country's leading expert on football finance.
Checked in the post for that, Kevin.
I don't know why my voice got slightly posher. I don't know why that is. How are you?
Oh, I'm grand, thank you very much. Yeah. All good.
Now, I feel we should make an admission here, because many people listening to this will know that we support Crystal Palace and you support another team. And they'll be saying, well, I wonder what the reaction is to the result of the big game at Selhurst Park. But unfortunately, logistical reasons mean we have to record this just before that big game. Now, I'm going to come out to the open air and admit that. So we are still talking, basically. Or we could do an alternative opening in which I exult, or in which one Kieran's happy. But we'll stick to the honest truth. Now, because Kieran is an accountant, he wants to suck the joy from everything. So our big question this week is Liverpool, who are doing brilliantly, but of course, Kieran's got questions. He's got issues, so we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the cost of replacing a manager, as we've lost 5 in the Premier League already, which is, even by Premier League standards, is pretty astonishing. And I'm really looking forward to this, because every now and again, Guy, the producer, we have a producer, and Kieran will throw in a question, and they won't tell me what the question's about. But we're talking about who are the Man United owner's second favourite team. So I thought, I'm not even going to Google that. So, Liverpool, obviously, it seems like a nothing but good news story for Liverpool at the moment. The stadium's been expanded. The team are playing, well, actually not brilliant football, but romping away with the Premier League. But you have some things to discuss, and the first one is who actually owns Liverpool Football Club.
Well, Liverpool are owned by Fenway Sports Group in the US. They're based in Boston, and they've historically had close links with New Balance, but not close enough for Liverpool to keep the contract. Liverpool have effectively signed over the kit manufacturing contract to Nike, and I think what's unusual about the deal is actually that Liverpool are going to get less money than they've got in the current deal as far as the sponsorship. But what they have agreed is that instead of getting a 7.5% commission on every shirt sold, they're getting 20%, and they've done their sums, and they reckon that Nike are going to generate more money because Nike have got the contacts, and Nike are going to go showbiz. So you're going to use some of Nike's global superstars to be connected with Liverpool, and on the basis of that, Liverpool feel confident they can make more money out of this.
Have you got a figure based on past years of how many shirts approximately Liverpool would sell around the world?
Well, Manchester United reckon they sell over 1 million a year. Now, Liverpool will be close behind, I suspect, because Liverpool, despite a relative lack of success in terms of winning trophies, still have the legacy issues from the 1980s. They've got this huge expat community. I'm an external examiner at a university in Cyprus, and half of Cyprus supports Liverpool because of those connections for the glory days, and therefore one of the ways of expressing that is through buying a Liverpool shirt. So the club's been very successful, and what it's also doing, it's being really smart in building up its links with Asia. Asia is a huge growth market.
Would those shirts be as expensive to buy in Cyprus as they are here?
If you go to the mainline stores, yes, right. There's plenty of knockoff places, but for many fans they feel slightly dirty if you're getting a knockoff shirt, and therefore they'll go for the real thing, and they'll pay. And what you tend to find actually in Europe is when I teach in Germany as well, is that the price.
You have time to do this pod.
That prices in Germany are ridiculously high. You're normally paying €90 to €100 for a football shirt.
Oh, that's interesting. So we will talk about the German model of football supportership as being fan-friendly, but that's not very fan-friendly, is it? Are you talking about German clubs here, or
German clubs?
Oh, that's interesting. So Liverpool have been quite savvy with that. So if they're selling 1 million shirts at probably 50 quid each, 20% of 50 million's not bad, is it? Yeah. And how have Liverpool's finances been affected by the redevelopment of the stadium? How is that paid for?
Well, they did borrow money, but they borrowed money from their parent, And that's paid off straight away, because Liverpool was generating around about 30 to 35 million pounds a year from match day. That's almost doubled, because what they've done is, although the capacity of Anfield only went up by about 9,000, a lot of the new seats which are being sold are prime pricing. And also they're keeping some of those seats back, and I think we discussed this in a recent show for the day tripper, which is appropriate in Liverpool, really. And therefore they are generating a lot of extra money, because they've been so successful at present. They don't know what to do in terms of demand for corporate and hospitality. They're actually having recently that they're farming some of the sort of the pre-match entertainment out to venues such as Aintree, and what will happen is you'll have you have a past legend sort of be the compere going around talking to the people who are paying top dollar for this, and then they're being bussed in to Anfield, which is okay. But I think from a fan's point of view, if you are entertaining clients, you want to be at Anfield for the whole of the experience. And the next step is to move the Anfield's capacity up to 60,000, and they've just announced a consultation with the surrounding areas for people that are living there, local businesses, to see whether they can get their approval. Because
there were some issues before with this expansion about them buying properties adjacent and then leaving them empty for quite some time, wasn't there? Yes, there's always going to be a bit of a delay, and also people don't like the idea. I work in Liverpool. They're a very proud people, and they will say, even as a Liverpool fan, it doesn't mean you can boss me about, and therefore, I'll be reluctant to accept compulsory purchase. But Anfield is spectacular. I gave a talk there last week for some transfer agents and some directors of football and people of that nature, and I was absolutely staggered at the facilities that they have to offer. And this is a way for clubs to make more money, because as we've discussed before, the football model is really dumb in that you're open for 25 days a year for 4 hours a day. So what they're doing is they're trying to make sure that they can make it more lucrative. You talked a little last week about Tranmere and how they were sort of not piggybacking as such, but sort of benefiting from the success of Liverpool and Everton, and people who were coming to Liverpool to see those clubs and to see the city. And obviously Liverpool is a city of great cultural heritage, and people are flooding in to see Beatles tours and all sorts of stuff. Would Liverpool as a club, would Everton as a club also as well be liaising with the city, with the cultural things? Would they be saying, like, if you go on a Beatles tour, come to Anfield, there's a ticket available? Is it a sort of symbiotic relationship? Yes, because what you can do, you can buy a multi-event ticket. It's similar to where if you go to London, if you go to New York, if you go to San Fran, and therefore that there are benefits for everyone. And the Liverpool FC tour is fantastic. And I'm not a Liverpool fan myself, but I went on it once, and I was very impressed. But it's the fact that they are using local people with local knowledge, so therefore you're not getting a corporate delivery. It's the fact that you're talking, or rather you're listening to a Scouser. A, he's supported the club all his life, but B, he knows the stories and the anecdotes which would even make my eyebrows raise. I've always been impressed by the fact that George Sefton, the club's PA announcer, he made his debut the same day that Kevin Keegan did, which I think most teams would sort of change their club announcer for a more trendy one every 2 years. And also a lot of local bands, he will be the first person to play their single over the tunnel at Liverpool. And I love that connection with the city, and because I've done some stuff with him a couple of times, and he's fascinating. He's brilliant. You couldn't get a better person to talk to about Liverpool than somebody who's been watching games since 1971 and announcing team changes that used to involve Keegan and Toshak and then Kenny Dalglish and now Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. But I think it's to Liverpool's credit, as you say, that they do use the local community and tap into the anecdotal knowledge that they have there.
Absolutely, and Liverpool's a fascinating city because it's got a sort of a small town mentality. The sort of the centre of Liverpool is actually very, very concentrated, and by making sure that you don't sell out, and I think that's really important for a club to lose its identity. Liverpool is a global club, and we're saying that it's going to make the money from the global sales of shirts, but it's still got that local identity, and it's very fiercely protected by the fans.
It's like it's like Marseille to an extent. You've also got there's always that slight edginess with a city that points outwards rather than inwards, and there's a very distinct difference between Liverpool and the rest of England, and same as Marseille and the rest of France, and they kind of tap into that quite well, don't they? I think.
Yeah, and it's it's as somebody that works there, it's a great place, and I'm talking to somebody from down south. It's a great place culturally, but the fanaticism of the football fans is one thing, but also their knowledge. If I go to a pub pre-match, I'm not expecting anybody to know anything about Brighton, but they have got encyclopedic knowledge of every club in that division.
You could be going to the wrong pub. Everyone in my pub knows exactly what Palace should be doing, buying, playing. And now Jurgen Klopp, obviously, however much they spent on him, he's been cost effective. But how much did they spend on him? Because no one's ever quite sure what they had to hand over to get a manager who's yet to be successful in the Premier League, we have to point out.
Well, the way that compensation works is that there's three ways of doing this. Either you've got to buy him out of his contract totally, so therefore you'd say, well, what are his expected wages for the rest of the contract? B, there could be embedded into his contract an actual buyout fee, or C, it's just on a sort of a function of negotiation. You pitch in with a bid, Dortmund would say no, and then just like a transfer fee, you reach some sort of halfway house.
And presumably bonus, he'll be getting extra money if you win the Premier League.
Oh, massive bonuses,
right.
Yes. And what you quite often find is that, and this was something which is quite often levelled at Arsene Wenger, that you get bonuses for qualifying, for being in the Champions League, for winning that and the other, but quite often the bonuses earned by the manager and the staff can exceed the additional money you get from the Premier League and from your sponsors. So the accusation that was made at Arsene Wenger was that fourth was actually the perfect position for Arsenal to be in each season, and I think they'll be quite happy with fourth in the future.
Absolutely. Apart from the money they will get for actually winning the Premier League, do they need to win the Premier League? What are the financial advantages? Will it make a huge difference to their profile, to their finances, if they win the Premier League?
Yes, it will, because you've got your prime sponsors in the form of Standard Chartered and presently New Balance, soon to be Nike. But so therefore there will be clauses embedded into those contracts. But what we are seeing is that clubs are going around the world, and they are trying to get secondary sponsors who are going to be your official snack partner in Malaysia, your official tractor tyre partner in Japan. And these aren't jokes. These are genuine things that are done.
For a book I'm working on, I had to research the Man United corporate sponsorship, and it goes to the third page on the website. It's the Nigerian soft drink sponsor. It's incredible. I mean, you can get a Man United coffin. It's ridiculous.
And what do those sponsors all want to be photographed alongside in terms of their product? The Premier League trophy, the Champions League trophy. Yeah. So why have Manchester United's sponsorship income? That's flatlined for the last 3 or 4 years. There's no growth involved there for United. And that's on the back of them not winning trophies. Ed Woodward's claim that we don't need to win football matches to be a commercial success. Well, that's not proven to be the case.
Well, I know we've talked about this before, but even a club with a heritage and a tradition and a history as big as Man United around the world have to rely on winning trophies to get sponsors?
Well, to get sponsors to pay more money.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So,
sure.
If you are an overseas sponsor, to a large extent, unless the managing director is a fan of the club, you want to be associated with success. So you look down and you say, well, Manchester United have been sixth last season, second the previous season, fifth and fourth and third. But what have they won during that period? And then you say, well, Liverpool have just won the Champions League. Liverpool are presently, how many points ahead in the Premier League this season. So there's that's what you want to be. Everybody wants to be associated with success.
Okay, let's move on to managers. Currently, I'm going to play with people's minds here. Last week, there were 5 managers, possibly since then. 6 people, because, as you know, as I've admitted, we recorded this a week ago. So today, everybody, looking forward to Christmas, could be 6 or 7 managers out of a job, according to what happens to West Ham. How much does it cost a football club to get rid of a manager? And is it this? Are they all individual deals, or will it be the same at every club, or it depend on the manager's salary or what they agreed to at the time?
Well, I managed to get hold of somebody in the industry, and I asked them this question direct.
You've got some contacts, haven't you?
And they said it's effectively one of 3 things. It could be a percentage of salary for the next X years. For some managers, it will just be 12 months worth.
Right.
And then for others, it will be you can effectively, you have to buy them out of the rest of the contract. So that's going to cost you, that's going to be the sacking fee. But if he then finds a job within the next 12 months, some of that is clawed back. So that would appear to be the position with Pochettino and Spurs. So that's why perhaps he's not necessarily in a hurry. Mourinho, how long did he wait before he took over the job at Spurs? Oh, it was just after 12 months. So he got 19 million from being sacked at Manchester United. He got 18 million from being sacked at Chelsea. He got money before the first time he was sacked at Chelsea. And Chelsea have actually spent £83 million sacking managers since Abramovich took over, which was a good night out, that, isn't it?
Yeah, for him, it's half a night out for him, I imagine. But you would argue economically that it's worked for them, sacking, because Arsenal kept hold of Wenger for so long, and in that time, Chelsea had 3 or 4 or 5 different managers, but also won 3 or 4 more trophies than Arsenal did.
That they did, but then if you take a look at how much money they spent on wages and how much money they spent on players during that period, changing a manager, the compensation for changing a manager, it appears 19 million for Mourinho. But then if you take a look at the money that Manchester United have spent in the last transfer window with Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, and James, that's 150 million. So that's practically it's 8 times as much. So sacking the manager can be that fee is cheap. It's the fact that when the new manager comes in, he will have identified A, players in the existing squad who he wants to shift out. They don't appeal to him, and B, he, to a certain extent in the Premier League, there's a degree of indulgence that the owner has just backed the manager by appointing him. Therefore, he's got to back him in the transfer market as well, unless he's Mike Ashley.
Okay. Now, as we're talking, this is last week. Remember. Keep up with what day of the week it is and which week it is and what month it's Christmas. We don't know if Pellegrini's still in a job, but there are West Ham fans I know who think West Ham can't afford to sack him because he's on a lot of money. And also every football fan thinks they know the intimate details of the manager's contract somehow. But they think it's beyond West Ham financially at the moment to pay him as much money as he would be expecting to get paid to step back from the club.
Well, there's 2 issues here. Do West Ham have the physical cash to pay him off? Probably not immediately, but they'd probably agree a settlement over you get paid every 3 months or 6 months, or he gets kept on the payroll. I mean, I remember Manchester City at one point. This was back when pre-Sheikh Mansour, Manchester City once had 7 former managers on the payroll because they couldn't afford to pay them up. 7. Oh yeah, when City were sort of shelling managers like peas. So that's an issue. But again, I was contacted by somebody last week to say there's going to be a managerial change at a Premier League club. But the club can't afford to do that immediately, or rather they've got to get approval from the Premier League to sack him because they're being investigated into how close they are to exceeding financial fair play limits. So here we've got the finance dictating you can't actually sack the manager.
So paying a manager off would take them outside the...
Yeah.
So when a manager resigns then, I assume he wouldn't expect to get a payoff, but I'm guessing it's a practical world that there will be chairmen who say to a manager, look, I don't want to sack you. Will you resign? Will there be money involved there? Or if a manager does decide he's not the right person for the job, would he still expect to get a little financial bonus when he went?
I think if the club is in trouble, and it has not had good fixtures, not good results recently, then sometimes the manager will go to the chairman and offer to jump before he's pushed, simply because it looks better. It looks better on his CV. But he would still expect some form of payoff, because he'd say, look, it's going to cost you, if you want to go and sack me, it's going to cost you $2 million. I'll walk now, and you give me 1.5. My understanding is, unless the manager's contract is finished over a particular period of time, then he'll get nothing. And the only other time when a manager won't get a penny at Premier League level is if he's sacked for gross misconduct, as happened with Gus Poyet at Brighton.
So down League Two level, a club at that level sacks the manager. Would they be looking at the same proportion of money that a Premier League club would have, or are they simply not able to pay a manager off of these sacks?
No, it's highly unlikely, because first of all, if you are recruiting an elite manager, the first thing you're going to do is that you're going to sign him up for a 4 or 5 year contract. The nature of League One or League Two is that the most a manager could hope for realistically is a 12-month rolling contract. And the amount that they're earning tends, is clearly to be much lower anyway. But whilst there's a lot of focus on managers and managers being sacked, if you've got a 25-man squad, the chances are the manager's the 26th highest paid individual at the club. So it's an unusual business, because normally in any hierarchy of the business, the higher up the chain you go, the more you get paid. Well, that's not the case. You've got chief executives of clubs on less than players, and you've got managers on less than players. It's
never occurred to me that. It's interesting, because a lot of Premier League players are only driven by finance and only respect people who get paid as much money as they do. I've spoken to a couple of footballers who said the only way you can get people to respect referees is to pay the referees as much as a Premier League footballer gets, or buy them a really flash car, so the player will go, oh, he must be earning a few bob. So that's quite interesting that the manager could be that low down the scheme of things.
Yeah, but if you also think about the nature of management, it's a really cutthroat business. So therefore, supply exceeds demand, unless you are at the elite level. So Mourinho's gone into Spurs on X million. Here, there's again various figures have been quoted in the press. There's very few people who are able to command that. And also, what we have seen in terms of the changes in the Premier League this season is that there's been a shift from overseas managers to English managers. So you've got Nigel Pearson, who's just gone to Watford. You've got Graham Potter at Brighton. You've got Roy at Palace, and so on. And I think there's a return to English managers. And I think we're quite reserved as a nation, and then therefore we don't actually expect as much unless we've got the baubles to show for it.
Well, also financially, if you're sacking an English manager, you're less likely to be sacking his retinue as well, because at Spurs, if you get rid of Pochettino, you're not only paying him off, you're paying off the 10, 12 people that he brought in with him when he came to Tottenham. Same as if Pellegrini is going, he will be taking 10, 12 people with him, and they've all got to be paid off as well, presumably.
They do, but their contracts tend to be they're far less lucrative, and what they will tend to have is that they will have a 3 or 6 month earn out on that. But because also the nature of football, if you look to see some of these managerial changes, they are looking to recruit assistants from other clubs and things of that nature, and therefore that's a very cheap form of recruitment, because the number two, he's not a fall guy.
Right, let's answer the burning question, the one that I've been anxious to. I didn't even Google it because I want this to be my little pre-Christmas present. Who are the Manchester United owners' second favourite club?
Manchester City.
Okay, wasn't the answer I was expecting. And
the reason for that is a couple of weeks ago we looked at the takeover or the investment in Manchester City by Silver Lake.
Yep.
And that was at far higher a value than anybody anticipated. I'd done some valuations myself. I thought that City were probably the most valuable club in the Premier League, but not to the extent. So 24 hours, look at the 24 hours.
You admitting to something close to a mistake there?
Well, close to, but not. They're still.
Okay.
I said they're number one, and they're number one.
Yeah.
Nobody else believed me at the time.
Right.
But if you take a look at what happened to Manchester United in the New York stock market, the value of Manchester United increased by £300 million within minutes of the announcement going through, because everybody recalculated their sums. Well, if City could be worth $4.5 billion, Manchester United, which is currently worth 2.7, we're immediately going to increase their value to over 3.
But United no one cashed in on that though, did they?
Well, somebody must have cashed in because share prices only go up if people are buying the shares. So therefore, if somebody is buying the shares, somebody must be selling the shares and will have cashed in.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, I was about to say it's almost uncanny because our first reader's question is about the stock market, but I've just realised we've got a producer who puts these things together. So it probably is a plan. I was just thinking, it's an amazing coincidence that we've actually got a question about the stock market and we've talked about, brilliant. But we have, as you know, we thrive on your questions here at Price of Football Podcast, so please do keep sending them in. So William has asked a question. Basically, how do clubs benefit from floating on the stock exchange? We know Man United have done it, Celtic, Roma, Juve have done it. Is it common? Is it clever?
It was a very sexy thing to do about 20 to 25 years ago. Millwall did it, Sheffield United did it,
Millwall did it.
Hearts did it. There were
okay.
Other clubs did it because they thought, well, if you go into the stock market, that allows you to go to people and say, give us some money. And a football club is always in search of money. But then there were two issues. First of all, the stock market regulations are very severe in terms of what you've got to report back, in terms of compliance with individual yellow book rules and things of that nature. So that your compliance costs were more significant, and you're having to give out more information, and you're having to give out that information quicker. Secondly, the nature of the investors in the stock market is that they are silver-tongued lawyers and accountants and bankers and so on, and they've got no emotional investment in Millwall. They've got no emotional investment in Hearts or Sheffield United or Spurs. Spurs were on the market as well, and therefore they say, well, if we're going to invest, we want a return on our investment. Now that return can either come through you paying us dividends. Football clubs can't do that because they lose money, or the value of the shares goes up. But unless you're winning stuff and unless you're announcing amazing sponsorship deals and broadcasting deals, you're not going to be the beneficiaries of that. So I was born in the Elephant and Castle. Millwall was effectively my local club, and my Uncle Terry was one of the top boys at Millwall many years ago. So I've got history at that club, and financially, it was never in a position to deliver in terms of.
I've been waiting to get a word in edgeways, but I couldn't because my jaw had dropped too far. What was your Uncle Terry thinking, letting you be a Brighton fan?
Well, it wasn't.
You were born in the Elephant and Castle, and you end up supporting those Labrador walking middle class. What?
It's my mum wouldn't let me go to the old Coldblow Lane with my Uncle Tell.
It was a terrifying place.
Because
of your Uncle Terry.
Because my Uncle Terry, he had some naughty friends, according to my mum, and she was worried about him.
I could never understand at Millwall how we've got exactly the same accent as they have. We look the same as they do, but they always knew we weren't one of them. So you weren't daft enough to wear a scarf. You'd scuttle in, but they just sensed somehow that we weren't one of them. I did not know this. So if Uncle Terry was still with us and Millwall were to float on the stock market, could Uncle Terry buy 10 shares? Is that how it works?
He could, and the thing is, it's only the likes of my Uncle Terry, God rest his soul, who would have bought those shares, and you stick the share certificate on your toilet wall because you never got a dividend from them because clubs in the lower divisions don't make money.
But would he have any? Would he be able to go to shareholders? Because this is a world I don't understand or know much about. Would he be able to go to shareholders? You occasionally see on the news a company that's in trouble and angry shareholders are gesticulating. And would he be able to go to shareholders' meetings? Would he get 10 shares worth of vote?
He would, yes. So the nature of being a publicly quoted company is that you must have what's referred to as an annual general meeting, and then all the shareholders can turn up, and at the front of that there will be the board and there'll be the manager. So, for example, Celtic, it's a publicly listed company. It had its shareholders meeting recently, and Neil Lennon and the board were there, and they were answering questions from the investors. But what they didn't say was, we're not going to give you any money.
Right. So if Uncle Terry and his naughty mates, if they buy 10 shares each, could they get enough of them together to actually influence? I mean, say Uncle Terry and his naughty mates suddenly got 30% of the shares in Millwall. Do they then become a sort of major voice in the club? Or
if and that's the issue, if there's enough of them. But we're talking about companies which have got millions upon millions of shares, so therefore Uncle Tel and his mates, even if they've got 10 shares each and there's a few hundred of them, they're going to end up with 0.01% of the shares.
Right.
And then you've got situations such as Manchester United, where Manchester United have got two classes of shares. You've got the A shares, which you or I could buy in New York. That carries 1 vote each. And you've got the B shares, which are owned only if your name is Glazer, and they're worth 10 votes each.
Oh.
Therefore, they've got all the power.
Is that a standard practice for other companies outside football?
It is, because if you look at Facebook, if you look at Google, which is now called Alphabet, and other companies, especially the tech companies, it's allowed them to raise lots of money, whilst the sort of the figurehead, the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, they still have all of the controlling power.
Right, and we've talked in recent weeks about fan-owned clubs, but they're not clubs that have got people that have got shares in the club. That's a different model, isn't it? Fan ownership is a different model to.
That's right. I mean, a fan-owned club, the likes of Exeter, who have done absolutely superbly, and we've seen other clubs they've done really well as well. They will have shares, but as a private company, you're talking about perhaps having hundreds of shares or just a few thousand. And as you know, I keep a list of every football club's shares and shareholders and everything. Sometimes I'll get the list of shareholders, and there will be hundreds of them. I'll go through and I'll tick them off one by one.
I like to think you read them on the toilet. I like to think on Boxing Day that's how you'll escape from the family. But I'll just go and have a little sit down and read through some share. But from what you were saying, I'm picking up a sort of negative vibe. It doesn't sound from what you're saying that this is a model that clubs will be looking to do in the future to float on the stock exchange.
No. The only thing that could potentially cause that to happen is if we move to the European Super League, where you've got this closed no promotion, no relegation model, and then all of those clubs are making huge sums of money. Then potentially there are benefits in listing on the market, because you'll be able to generate extra funds.
Now, I know that's a coincidence that you mentioned European Super League, because Guy's a very good producer, but even he couldn't manipulate you to do this. Because our final question is from Gareth, because we're not just about English football here, and we are going to have a Scottish football special coming up soon, but I'm also fascinated to compare European models and other models to us. And Gareth's asked, it's actually a really good question. He's a Northampton fan, but he's asked how Athletic Bilbao managed to compete in La Liga, considering they pride themselves on being the Basque club and only recruiting people from that region. I've always loved the history of Athletic Bilbao and the fact that they have an English name out of deference to their first manager. So they're not Atletico, they are Athletic. But that's a really interesting question on the face of it, isn't it? Because they're up against some financial giants, and yet they managed to without actually winning many things, they still managed to thrive in the top level of Spanish football. And
I think they're one of only 3 clubs that have never been relegated from La Liga. Along with the 2 others who we need not mention. Yeah. The thing about Spanish football is that you've got 3 clubs who have got huge sums of money coming in, and then you've got everybody else that's competing for the rest.
So the third one is Atletico, presumably.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
And as far as Bilbao is, because I think they're around about 15th in La Liga at present. They're not having the greatest of seasons, but what they've been very good at doing is, because there is this incredible bond with the local population, is that players will want to. There is pride in being recruited and coming through the academy there, and that's allowed them to sell on players at a profit. So financially, Bilbao have actually been very well run, and it actually works in their favour, because it restricts their ability to sign players from elsewhere. And therefore, they've got the players going out on profits, but they're not spending large sums of money on players coming in.
And I'm guessing that the nature of cultural identity and politics in that area is such that there won't be many Bilbao fans who are saying, let's get rid of this stupid Basque-only policy, let's win something. That's the selling point, and that's the reason they support the club, is because it represents their identity. So the mere existence of that sort of defiant region is better than winning trophies, I'm guessing.
That's right, and also has a very positive impact upon attendances, because you're not just going to watch a football match, you're going to preserve your local identity and show 2 fingers up against the people in Madrid.
Just for the benefit of those listening at home, Kieran actually stuck 2 fingers up there. He's acting out. Thank you very much to those listening at home. This has been a Dap Dip production. We recorded The Price of Football at the Comedy Store here in the heart of Soho in London's West End. And remember, if you've enjoyed us, please put those reviews. Hopefully, if I don't... In fact, let's not say reviews. They're 5-star reviews. Don't be putting 2-star reviews up on wherever it is you listen to our podcast on. Please put those 5-star reviews on the podcast, because it does help us become more successful, and then we can bring even more stories to you.
The Price of Football. The price of football.